Welcome back to the Post Definitions podcast. I'm your host, Freddie Lancha, and today I sit down with another great friend of mine, Eva, who set out on her own mission to dive as deeply as possible into Georgian culture. What you can surely imagine, and what you've probably learned to expect if you've been following the podcast until now, is that has led to a lot of questions and challenges related to the topic of identity. Eva found herself in Georgia during a time of significant transformation and importance to Georgian society. And while she, coming from the Czech Republic, she had to understand exactly what role can she, as a foreigner, play in this movement, which is not her own, but it's very significant to her in a personal sense. So, through this journey of trying to understand others, she really went through a self-discovery journey. So, please enjoy. So, right now in Tbilisi is an intense situation of protesting, and Eva is very passionate about this. And but you've also been going through some own reflection on yourself and where you fit into this. Mm-hmm. What has been your experience been protesting in Georgia, in Tbilisi, as a Czech person?
Okay. Very intense question right from the beginning. This is very broad because I think that every person coming to these events, to the protests, I think everyone has a different sort of at least slightly different reason, slightly different purpose with him being at the protest. Maybe I think it's important to highlight why these protests are going on. We are in the year of 2024, when the current Georgian government that won the elections not in a very democratic way, I would say. Well, this is very much questionable. I don't think it's my competence to dive into details, but nevertheless, the political developments in Georgia are very shaky these days because, basically, in the past several years, Georgia was on this path to EU. Like there were many projects, like infrastructure projects, democratic transition projects funded by EU, and EU made a lot of effort to make Georgia, I'm not necessarily saying like part of EU, but Georgia was basically on this EU path of distancing itself from Russia. This is like the main idea. And with after the elections that took place here a month ago, slightly after them, the government announced that they are suspending the EU rapprochement negotiations, which sparked the big protests. Like, this was one of the main reasons. And me myself, you asked about why am I passionate about it, and how does it like make me feel?
Yeah, exactly.
From the point of my identity, I come from a country where the democracy has been not a sure thing always. I come from the Czech Republic, and in my family, particularly, there were some political prisoners. My granddad, he was a political prisoner. He was sentenced for, I guess, 7 years in a work camp. Also, the property of my grandma was confiscated. It was returned to the family in a very bad state, very bad condition. So, like, on my family, the communism in the Czech Republic left very deep traces, and it's very there is a huge and like sad experience with the influence of Russia in our country, in my family. And my parents, they made effort to teach us about it. It was a very important topic in our family discussions. And really, I think that especially for my dad, this was always very important for his kids to know how democracy is important and how important it is for people to fight for it, because it's not given. It's something that people should cherish. People should somehow like make efforts to maintain it, to take care of it. And what's happening in Georgia these days touches me as well, because in the light of the experience of my ancestors, I feel this is important for me to participate on these happenings as well. Because the current times in Georgia are very transformative, I think. And for many people who are going to the protests, they say now everything is at stake, like the freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, like the insurance of the basic human rights in this country are at stake, and they are fighting for it. This is a very I know that I'm not diving into details because this is a very complex topic. So for me it is important to participate in it, because for myself it has this personal importance. At the same time, I realize when being there, it's not 100% about me, because I'm not Georgian. And this is a very interesting clash of two different directions in me. One, being related to what I was talking about before, like being related to my family history and to this concept of democracy and human rights that I try to cherish in my life, and to take care of them. But on the other hand, me being a foreigner in this country makes it a bit more complicated, because then the people at the protest, they might tell, oh well, but why are you here? Why aren't you staying at home? Some foreigners, they might also ask, but don't you think this might be this might cause harm for the protest, because then it might be used against the idea of protest, because if the police, for example, asks for my legitimization or my ID, my passport, they might ask, well, but you're not Georgian, so why are you participating in the protest? Does it mean that you were sent here by EU to organize, to spark the protests? And this is something that every foreigner, I think, should consider. I don't really like the idea of many foreigners going to the protests out of the excitement, out of their desire to experience something adventurous. At the same time, it's a responsibility of every person attending these events. But for me, myself, you asked why am I here? For me, it has this personal attachment stemming out from the experience of my ancestors and my, let's say, responsibility, or the bondage with my family and this identity feeling that I have. So it is important for me to be part of the protests and to be involved in the civic movements in Georgia as well these days, because I feel like we do have the same goal and we are fighting for the same thing. But yeah, I think at the same time it doesn't mean that I necessarily have to force myself to totally dive into the Georgian culture or the Georgian mentality, because still I come from a different country. I'm not Georgian, and I think it's important to know where I am, who I am, and not necessarily have to force myself into somebody else's culture, even though we can all participate in the protests and fight together for values that are precious for us.
Yeah. What do your Georgian friends think about you being at the protests?
That's also a nice question, and thanks for asking that. And for me, it was also important to hear them saying what they think about me participating there. And all of them said they are very happy. They feel the support. And that was interesting as well, because mostly they say, yeah, we really appreciate your support. Thanks for being here. But at the same time, I told them, look, okay, you might consider it as a support. I see it as me being here not only to support you, but to let you know that I'm standing on the same side, that I'm fighting for the same thing, that the values that you're fighting for here are precious for me as well. And I think it's these developments are very much related to not only to Georgia, but they apply to different countries as well, different societies, different cultures. And so my Georgian friends, they are happy to see me at the protests.
Yeah. I feel like what you mentioned about, like, if police are going to find you and see that you're not from Georgia, what are you doing here? It complicates whether you should be there or not. But it really doesn't answer the question at all for me, like, where are you better, like in the process or not, right? It just gives you this kind of feeling that, it's just unsure, feeling of unsureness, like whether it's good or bad to be there and how much or something like this.
No.
No.
Because I think it is really important, and I think that I'm asking myself every night before heading to the protests, when I'm like preparing and leaving my house. I'm like, are you sure you want to go there? Like, yeah. And I think it's about the personal feeling, because not everyone has the same feeling about it. Someone can feel, okay, I don't necessarily have to go there. But the other person can feel, I need to be there. For example, one night, I think it was like the 5th night of the protests, it was maybe 8 p.m. I was going to the gym. It's like my routine, and I decided to go to gym. And then in the gym, I looked at my phone, and I saw a few messages from my friends asking whether I'm already on Rustaveli and where can they find me. And then I saw some footages of the street, how it's already crowded by people. And I was thinking, this is wrong. Like, it's wrong. Like, me being in the gym is wrong. It doesn't feel right. My place is somewhere else at this very moment. I stayed for only for a few minutes in the gym, and I went back to the city center. So I think this is very much about a personal feeling. And I remember another day, a friend of mine, my classmate from Prague, she texted me because she saw that I was posting something from the protests as well, and she texted me, "Hey, I really appreciate that you are sharing your experience from the protests, and I want to say that I support you, and I really like that you know what's right for you now. You know that your role or your place is at the protests, even though you're a foreigner. I'm very happy with your, I don't know, choice, or with your attitudes, that you know where is your right place at these days." So that was a very encouraging message.
Nice. Do you make a lot of decisions in your life based on like just your feeling, like where you're supposed to be, or is this something that is somehow like this decision of, should I be protesting political movements in general? I don't know. Is this something that should be more guided by feelings of I should or shouldn't be there, I know what I need in my heart kind of thing, more than other things in life?
Yes. I think the inner feeling is something that should guide everyone, and I think that every person should be more attentive to the feelings we have, because the feelings or the emotion, like emotion, like this is the source of the motion, of the next movement, of what comes after. And what really helps me is to observe myself, and let's say at the ending of each day, I really like to have this self-reflection, or to recall the most vivid events from each day, and to recall how I felt, to realize what emotions I went through. Sometimes it's even better to write it down on the paper or into my phone. There is an app, like it's something like journaling, and we were talking about it earlier, that this is something that really helps me in making decisions, because once you observe yourself, you observe your feelings and emotions, then it serves like a guiding tool for your next steps, for your next decisions. And I think that based on observation of yourself during 1 month or several weeks, you are more capable of finding out where you want to be, if you should change something about your current life, about the place where you live, about your profession, about the way you're spending time, about also the people you're surrounded by, because all of this has an impact on us, and impact on our happiness, let's say. So feelings are very important. It's important to observe them.
Through this observation, would you say you're learning about yourself? Would you say that there's something that you concretely learned about yourself in Georgia?
In Georgia. Yes. Yes. I think that I learned how difficult it is to stick to your own commitments. And we are talking, like, this podcast is about identities. And for me, at the beginning, when I came here, I was very committed to learning about the culture, learning their language, learning about people, about their mentality, the way they are thinking, the way they are spending their time. And then after 2 months, I found out this is quite exhausting for me. This is not the pace of life I was having back in Prague. And I found out that the local mentality, or local let's say pace of life, works completely differently than back in Prague, because people are different, or like the society works a bit differently. And I realized that for me, in order to get closer to the local people, I do things that I wouldn't be doing in Prague. And then I had a conversation with my Georgian friend about that, and he asked me, but you told me you were not smoking before, and now you're smoking here with me. And I told him, yeah, because like I'm not a smoker. I just smoke very occasionally, even here. But I told him, this is one of the tools that brings me closer to the locals. Like I feel that once I have the cigarette, people next to me, they are more open. They feel sort of a bigger trust because they feel we are on the same page. I feel less as a foreigner. And then he told me, but I would rather get to know you as a real Eva, like who you really are, and not who you are when you're trying to get closer to the Georgian people. I really want to get to know you as a person, as an individual, and not as a person who is who is like trying to get closer to foreign culture. So that was really interesting for me, because I realized that I don't necessarily have to stick to things that are usual for certain cultures or for certain environments, just in order to be part of it. And I can stay myself because there are people who take care of me just because of me, like because of my individual commitments, or the way of life I have. But so you were asking whether my life in Georgia taught me something about myself. This was, for example, one of these things that I'm very easily I can very easily change my routines or my what is important for me in order to get closer to a certain group of people. And then there is a question whether I'm doing it because I really, really want to, or whether I'm doing it just to observe, or to out of the excitement, or out of the adventure.
I also think that when you come to Georgia and you want to do this research and also like understand what it's like to be Georgian, you're like diving in and making all these connections and living like a Georgian, while at the same time stepping out and doing and making time for your regular life, and you're like reflecting on what that was like and so on. And so if you really try to fill your day with like what it's like to be Georgian, then you still have to like have the other half of your day to do your other thing, where you be yourself and you reflect on what just happened, right? And so that's why maybe it's so much harder for you to fill in, like find time for both.
Yes. Yeah, because like I I have my profession, I have my interests, and like I can't how to say, when I was talking about me trying to get to know the Georgian culture, it doesn't mean that like I'm since the morning until the evening every day I'm like surrounded by Georgians. No. Of course, like I need to I know where my place in this world is. And I'm sticking to that. I know that I'm here for a certain amount of time, and for me the idea behind coming here, living as an expat in a different country, in a country which I really like, was mostly because I realized that most of my life I lived in one country, in the country where I was born, in the country where everyone speaks the same language. And I at some point I realized that I was in a way fed up with the sense of homogeneous environment. And I felt like I really want to experience what is life somewhere else. And it doesn't necessarily mean that when learning about different culture and trying to experience it in your daily life, it doesn't mean that I'm abandoning all my commitments or my hobbies, my profession that I like, my goals. I'm not abandoning these. It's only another spark or another aspect coming your way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to devote your whole day to learning about Georgian society and people, for it to start to clash with your other commitments, because I know that you're very busy, and I know that your things that you're working on, they do clash with each other, regardless of whether you're trying to spend all your time doing them. Like, I mean, for me, like, once I went to a town in Italy where my ancestors are from, and my Italian was like at a certain level, and I knew that like no one in this town spoke any English, because it was like in a very distant, remote place, and I had to like talk to people about looking for documents, and so it wasn't like easy, and I remember it just took so much effort, actually, like for me to go out of my apartment and like just go and try to talk to one person or a few people. And like I remember always just being so tired after like 1 hour of that or something. So that's just my experience, that like sometimes even if you're just devoting 1 hour to a project, if it's like really new and whatever, maybe it tires you, and then you have to go back to your other commitments, like you said. So maybe you can say something about your, like, how your relationship with your own Czech identity changed, like between being in Czech versus being outside.
That's a very nice question. Thanks for that. Because I feel like when living abroad, even if for a couple of months, you feel stronger connection to your home country. And for me, I have two big reasons for this. I realized that when I'm being a bit detached geographically from my country, as I'm now, I feel like I miss my country. I miss my culture. For example, I was in a public transport and I was listening to some music. I was trying to. I was listening to Irakli Charkviani, which is one of the one of my favorite singers in Georgian, and then I realized, but wait, Georgians have such a nice interprets, nice musicians. They have really nice music, but Czechs do too, and I haven't realized that before in such an intense way. And then I was thinking, but yeah, let's put a different song, and I started listening to Karel Kryl, who's he's like a singer who produced like revolutionary songs, and he was a very important public figure during the late 60s and 70s in the Czech Republic. He was persecuted as well, and he's one of the symbols of the fall of communism in the Czech Republic. And I just started randomly listening to him, and I was thinking, yeah, we do have, like, Czechs do have some very important personalities in their history that they can turn to and they can look up to. So I think in here I realized that that when being outside of my country, I feel maybe a bit more connection to my country, because I realize I'm not surrounded, I'm not exposed to the Czech culture here, which is why I feel the Czech culture is precious to me. It is something I want to cherish in my life. It's maybe also because I might say I miss it in a way. I think that this is very natural. Once you lose something, you start missing it. This is, for example, the feeling of having possibility going to, I don't know, to the theater to listen to Smetana's opera, for example. Of course, like I'm not going to a theater in Prague every month, but this is something that is very much related to the Czech culture as well. And these days I'm thinking of these like little aspects of the Czech culture, and I'm looking forward to like build my relationship with my home country once I'm back. There are a few books that I decided to read after I come back, because I realized that I was a bit more ignorant when it comes to the Czech culture before. And in here I see that Georgians, they are very much they cherish, they value their own culture very much. All the people they know, they've read Rustavelli's poems or Vasha Pšavela. They know their history. If they ask them about their medieval kingdoms, like all of them, they would be able to describe how the rulers of the country, what they did, and in which years they have ruled the country, and everyone is basically very much knowledgeable about the history of the country, and I don't see the same level of knowledge about the Czech history, about the Czech culture among Czech people. So this is something I would like to take an inspiration from the Georgians, because I really like the way how they love their country. I also get the sense of patriotism, and I feel like in this extent it is very it is healthy. It's actually very nice how they like being Georgians, how they appreciate themselves being part of the Georgian culture and society.
How do you think that like influences how they fight for their country, their democracy now, versus maybe how like Czechs would, or maybe that's too big of a question?
I wouldn't dare to make any comparisons,
because nothing like this is happening in Czech right now.
Czech Republic is in a very different position geographically, politically, and this is very, very hard to say how Czechs would react to such developments. But what I really liked, what really impressed me, one night during the protests, I remember at the front line when there were the policemen and the truck with water cannons, and they were throwing gas on people. At the front line there was a picture or painting of Saint George. It was placed on the road
by the protesters.
By the protesters.
Looking at the police.
looking at the police, and it worked as a symbol of Georgian resistance, as a symbol of Georgians being fighters, and of the Saint George being their guardian or their patron, the one who takes care of them and who makes sure that they stay safe in a way. And for me, this was very touching, something very, very, like tangible symbol that they look up to. And maybe in the Czech culture, this would be Saint Wenceslav, like the Svatý Václav. Yeah, or Václav Havel. We have different personalities we can look up to from our history. But in Georgia, for me, this was a very important moment to see this.
Did you see anything like that the police were then not like hesitating to fire at this?
I don't think that the police somehow reflected on that.
Okay. No. Maybe you can say what it would be like for you, for like if something, like if you were like, so you talked about how you feel at the protests and how if like police were to see that you're a foreigner, it might have complications. And I talked to Nini, who's Georgian, last week about like what she's willing to happen to her to fight for her country. She said she will take like water cannon, she will take gas, she will get arrested. She doesn't think she would be willing to die for her country or for this movement. Like, how would it feel for you if you got arrested here?
Bad, I guess. No, I think I wouldn't get arrested. I think that what would happen to me, I would be just deported.
Okay.
Yeah, and restricted entering the country in the future. Or at least this is my expectation. What would happen to me?
Yeah, and that would feel like you fucked up, or like you failed, or like you did what you were supposed to do. Or?
No. I think it's better. Okay, I'm the kind of person who rather wants to do what feels right for me at that very moment, and what comes after comes.
Nice.
And I just don't want to look back and think, I shouldn't have done it, or I should have done something else. No, I would rather regret that I have not done something rather than the opposite. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm bouncing around a lot, but now I'm thinking again about like when you go back to Prague and what you bring with you. How do you think you're going to be able to, like, how is it going to be different to interact with Czech people? Like, I know you came to Georgia like 10 years ago, and so it's not your first time leaving the country, blah, blah, blah. But like, what is the difference between like how you interacted with people who had never left? You said it's, you used the word monogamous, or
homogeneous environment.
Yeah. Like, how do you interact with those people like now versus when you had fewer international experiences?
This is very tough. Okay, so there are two different environments for me. One is back home at my parents' place in the countryside where I was born, the place I consider my home. Like the first home. And the second one, Prague, which is rather like vibrant, it's getting more multicultural last years, where I feel more comfortable, more accepted. When it comes to interacting with people in Prague, I think it will be more easy for me because the way of life is a bit different, very naturally. But when it comes to sharing the experiences with people on the countryside, I think that you can expect it will be different. I think based on my previous experience when I was returning back home from different stays abroad, I realized that the experience I'm taking from the abroad can't be conveyed. It can't be shared. The experience is just for me. I can't share it with anyone, even though I would love to. I would, every time I'm experiencing either adventures or something very, very touching somewhere abroad, I feel like I want to share this with my closest ones, with my family. But then when I come home, I realize it's not possible. The experience is just for me. It happened to shape myself, not to shape other people back home. And I think this is important for every traveler to embrace it, or to not just traveler but people living abroad and then returning back home, to embrace the fact that these experiences can't be conveyed, that they happened to enrich myself. Of course I can use them in my relationships, but I can't expect that those people I'll be sharing these experiences with them, that they will understand. They will not. So I think I was thinking actually how it will look like when I will come back to the Czech Republic, even if for a week, because in January or February I will need to get back to Prague for a week or two. And I was thinking that most probably I will ask my friends or my closest ones not to ask me about what's going on in here, because I don't think that I will be capable that much of sharing.
Because I always find that people who won't understand, they don't even ask, like,
yes,
because they don't even
sometimes
know what to ask about.
Yeah.
And then that's like for me the sign that okay, I don't need to tell them. But I think I wouldn't tell anyone that don't ask. But I
maybe,
because you can always like try. But yeah, maybe if they don't have, because you can convey something, right? Just they might build an image in their head that isn't quite how it was, which is okay. I mean, as long as it doesn't, it's not too wrong in the wrong ways or something.
That would be my concern, that they would get it in a wrong way. Of course I can make my best to convey the right message, the message I want. It's also about the skills of my explanations or communication skills. But I think that I will be more cautious about sharing experiences. Because
right now we are sharing to some people who are not here, and well, I think it has its place, you know. Actually, one of the reasons why I started this podcast was to explain these experiences to people elsewhere, you know. And I'm not bringing the camera out on the streets to Stavelli, but I mean, I could do that, but I mean, I'm very passionate about the people, you know, like in these conversations. So this is what I choose to send home, I guess.
I think there is a question if that person is open to learning something new, to seeing what the other person went through. And if the person is open, of course, it's a completely different story. But then there are people who are asking you just because they think it's polite, or because they don't have other topic to talk. Well, I mean, every time there are different topics. But I think this is also the reason why you haven't stayed in your home country. You're traveling, or you're living somewhere else, and this means you are open to, you're eager to learn, to listen to what other people can share with you, and that's what I like about expats, or about people from different cultures living somewhere else, at least for a few months, or for certain time, because they get completely different idea of what does it mean to be open, to listen to other people.
I do think we can bring that home though, and listen to the people at home, even when it seems like they might not have anything to talk about, because of course they've been alive this whole time.
True.
I don't know.
And share the vibe.
So is there something that you were hoping to like a topic you were hoping to touch on, hoping to share about, when it came to your identity in the world, your experiences, your maybe philosophies behind this topic?
Well, I mean, there are so many.
Yeah.
So many. I think that we could be talking for hours, for days about identity.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe we could wrap it up for now. Cool. Okay. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eva. That was a lot to think about.
Thanks for good questions.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I mean, we could dive into each of those topics more. Maybe we will one day, on a follow-up episode. Cool. Okay.
Thanks for asking really good questions, Brady.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Everything. Bye. Subscribe. Follow on Instagram, and we're on Spotify and YouTube. And I don't know, Eva, do you have anything you want to shout out of your?
I mean, try to get yourself informed about what's going on in Georgia, because now we are in Georgia. So try to get yourself informed about current developments, and why is it important to not only to protest, but to listen to what other people can say about their cultures, and to have conversations like this.
Let me just say that there's a lot going on in the world, and that might discourage some people from diving into new topics, or feeling like, oh, now there's this thing going on in Georgia, and I was just learning about what was going on in Ukraine and Gaza or something like this, and you just think you're too far away to even get started. But I always think just some baby steps into a topic never hurts, and you might find that as a stepping stone into, I don't know, some realization that might connect to another topic. So yeah, just be hungry for knowledge.
For knowledge, exactly. Be curious.
Yeah,
and think critically.
Yeah,
question everything.
That's the curiosity we were also talking about, what that comes with being abroad. If you bring that home, you can also find things to be curious about, I think. Which is harder.
Let's wrap up.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.